I'm wrapping the mallet. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
You better get your car keys. I'm gonna make you drive in. All right, so here we go. Do we have Guillermo online?
Yes, I'm
Guillermo,
here.
do we have any new members
I
this
just
month?
came on, so I haven't looked at all the beautiful faces yet.
Okay.
Raise your
They all
hand
look
if
like
you're
people.
new.
Who's? Oh, you do. Mr. Grant.
I'm new.
Grant. Mr. Grant.
Yes,
They were here
Okay.
last month.
Yeah.
I was here
He was
last
here.
month, but I wasn't a member. I'm new now.
Okay.
Oh, you joined.
Cool.
Welcome aboard.
All right.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that you joined after that.
Okay. So some of the benefits of club membership, but what I'll do is I'll probably rattle your cage this week and just walk you through all the stuff that we provide to the members free of charge or at little or no cost to them. But welcome. We're needing more members. The ranks have thinned quite a bit during COVID, and that's not good. Yes, ma'am. Kathy Toller.
I'm curious. I'm trying to keep track of people, but who's iPad Mini 2?
That's me, Vic Bean.
Oh, okay.
I
Thank
don't know why
you.
it says, well, that's what I call my iPad.
Okay. And I see John Halpin joined us. From the background, either you've got an interesting Zoom background or you're back from Hawaii.
I'm back from Hawaii. The temperature wouldn't go above 80, so we decided to come home.
Okay. You cost me money.
Right.
I made the mistake of telling my wife that you and Dory had purchased Apple Watches. And she said, it's time to get an Apple Watch. So I now have an Apple Watch and Carol Lee has an Apple Watch. So did you get yours set up okay?
Yes, but I find it very frustrating. I'm used to having a battery or a mechanical watch that works for 1 year before you have to do something. Having
Yeah.
to manage the charge on your watch is really a game changer.
Yeah, you have to somehow work it into your normal daily routine so that when you're doing something where you're not active, the watch is being charged up at that time. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, the charging requirement is difficult when you're on long travel hikes.
Oh.
Okay.
I can share some tips on that. I had a last week I said today at the strongman contest. Teresa Mutual thing. So I turned, if you turn the theater mode on, your battery will last a lot longer. Now you won't get all the alarms and stuff. The theater mode changes it completely. I mean, I could go 4 times as long in theater mode. You can do that right on the face of the watch. Just a little tip: when you're going to be out a long time, you need to have your battery last a lot longer. Use the theater mode.
Yes, I do that regularly.
Rick,
Yeah, it
just
works great,
FYI, you were breaking up and we were getting an echo effect. So you may have some other devices.
It's my wife's iPad in the other room. She had it. She didn't have it muted.
Okay. All right. So with that said, so we've done our good morning. We've welcomed our new member. Let's start off with news. Anybody have anything they want to share with the members in terms of news events, things that are going on either locally or that they've noticed in the Apple ecosphere? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll just tell you that we're going to cover what Apple released this week, but we're going to do it next month. But just real brief, the iPhone SE, the special edition, the cheap one, it's a little more expensive. They raised the price on it. They put the A13 Bionic in it, so it's got a newer chip in it. 15, excuse me. Thank you for the correction. The A15, so it's going to have the same chip in it that the other ones do, and they have a new color. With the iPad lineup, the only thing that they really changed were some new colors for the iPad Air, and it's going to have, instead of one of the A15, A14 chips, they put in an M1 chip, which is the same ARM-based Apple Silicon that they've put in some of the Macintoshes. So that's an interesting development to see. And I think that harbinges their whole idea of having the same programs running on your Macintosh platform as you do on your iPad platform, as you do on your iPhone platform, and the watch will probably stay with the A chips. And then last but not least, two items that they announced. One is a value price studio display coming at $1,900, but oh wow, has it got stuff. So if you're a videographer, you're doing that kind of stuff, or a high-end photographer, you really need a excellent screen to be able to do this stuff. They announced the studio display, and it has an A14 chip in it to just handle the webcam and the spatial audio speakers. So I think it's interesting that they didn't do a specialty chip. They just took one that they already had and used that instead. And I'm thinking it has to do with supply chain issues. Being able to get a specialty chip designed, produced, and to the assembly point is probably a little problematic still. And then last but not least, they did not announce a new Mac Mini. They announced a new machine called the Mac Studio, and it's 8 inches by 8 inches. So that's the footprint, and it's about 4 inches tall. And it ranges from a $2,000 price tag up to $8,000. And the top of the line configuration is 60% faster than the $28,000 Mac Pro that they've been selling with the Intel processors. And so, you know, you could almost hear the Mac Pro owners out there going like, oh, you know, duh, I spent more money than I should have. But then at the very end of the presentation, they teased us with saying, and there's one more thing, but we won't talk about it now, and it has to do about the Mac Pro. So there's speculation that they're going to take the big tower, the big Mac Pro, and they're going to be putting Apple Silicon in it. Did I miss anything, Rick? Mark?
Yeah, you did. They also
Oh.
announced Major League Baseball is bringing
Okay.
Friday Night Baseball 2 games to the Apple TV Plus,
Okay.
and a whole bunch of stuff related to baseball. I don't know who cares, but it's
Yeah, I was
you
sort
know.
of discounting that because the owners and the players haven't reached an agreement yet. There
But
may
they have
not
reached
be
an agreement.
baseball.
they
They
did.
signed an agreement. They reached
Oh.
an agreement.
Okay.
They're gonna play a
I-
full
I-
season.
I try not to watch the news. Oh, there was one other thing, and that is they also announced that they have a new Apple Silicon chip. So you have the M1, you have the M1 Pro, you have the M1 Max, now you have the M1 Ultra. And that is a chip that they will be putting in that new Mac Studio. And what they revealed was that there was a little bit of secret sauce with the M1 chip that they hadn't really told anybody about. And that is that they have a way to connect these chips together, what they call ultra fusion, where the two chips act as if one chip. So they took 2 M1 Max chips, splooged them together on the die substrate. And so now you have something that's got 64 graphic cores. I mean, the thing is a beast. And then the other thing which I thought was interesting that they didn't mention, but it's in the patent application for the M1, that apparently that Ultra Fusion interface is on all 4 sides of the chip. So potentially they could put these things together like a quilt and just boom, you know, there you go. it has some unbelievably absurd implications for computer speed and data throughput. I mean, it's just, I'm data transfer numbers that if I had seen anywhere before from anybody else, I would have said, oh, that's a typo. That has to be a typo. They've got it, to the factor of 5 or 10 times larger than it should be. But no, those are the real numbers. So M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra. Okay, go ahead.
The Ultra machines are going to be a little bit heavier than the other machines because they had to put a bigger heat sink in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2
That's
pounds, I think was the number.
Yeah.
2 pounds of metal to cool this thing when it's going full speed. And this is an energy sipper, tells you the amount of power that this thing can, the computational power. The thing that just I kept looking at their numbers during the presentation. I went, they can't be right. Was this thing is so energy efficient when it's cranking at the same level as a Mac Pro going full bore, it's using 40% less energy to achieve the same computational power. You just go like, wow, And then you factor in that there are no graphic cards with this. The graphic memory is built into the chip. Your memory is built into the CPU. And then you have these additional artificial intelligence cores that are also built into the chip. It's what they call a unified design. And, when it works, it's a beast. My only concern is what if you make a mistake designing the chip? Because you can't, you have to replace the whole chip. You can't just replace the graphics memory or the regular memory. You got to replace the whole thing. Anyway, so with that said, anybody else have any news items? Anything they want to share with the members? Going once, going twice.
Along the same vein, I got an email or a print somewhere. They were comparing the new M1 Ultra to a certain percentage of Watson, the big IBM supercomputer.
Yeah.
It was like, they said it was like 10% or something of the computational capacity.
Yeah. And Watson is a mainframe.
Right.
Not something that's 7 inches by 7 inches by 4 sitting underneath your monitor. I mean, God.
As a user, though, Bill, as a user, I object a little bit to the loss of flexibility in Apple's equipment because they integrate everything so heavily. If you outgrow your machine, for example, or your tasking requirements change over time, you can't upgrade. You can't upgrade the memory from what it was originally. Yep. You can't change the graphics processor independent of the rest of the machine. So you're stuck with something that's good for Apple, I guess. You have to replace the whole machine. You have to spend a lot more money to do that. But as a consumer or as a user, it's not in my best interest all the time.
Yeah, it also has a consideration when you're buying, because in the past, when I would buy a machine, I would do it with the thought of, oh, I'll add more memory later as I need it. Mm-hmm. Well, if everything is in that chip, you have to buy it as you want it, as you're going to use it a couple years from now, which means that you got to up the specs a little bit.
Yeah, so you spend more now, which I guess is okay for Apple, but not necessarily for us.
So my understanding of the rumor mill, they're saying there's going to be one more Mac Pro that's going to be between this. I'm going to call the Mac Studio the chunky because it looks like a chunky chocolate bar to me. Remember Chunkies? The square chocolate. Anyway, so
mini.
the chunky, say
it's
again.
A fat mini. Or
yeah,
it's chunky.
It's chunky. Fat is derogatory. Chunky is okay. You can be chunky, but you say somebody's fat, no, they give you that look. Okay, so anyway, so there'll be a step above that one where it'll be a tower where you can swap out RAM, You can swap out video processors and that. And then of course, they're going to keep the big tower. Because I mean, you know, there's people with more money than sense that'll pay $52,000 for a high-end Apple Mac Pro. So yeah, so anyway, but I've just made some notes down here, David, that this is other stuff to consider when you're buying things. So we had talked about next month basically doing telling you more about the new machines that were announced, but also doing sort of a buyer's guide. If you're doing these sorts of things today and you think you're going to be doing these things in 2 to 3 years, what should you buy as a replacement for a MacBook Air or an iPad Air or an iMac 21-inch or an iMac 27-inch, just to sort of help people get through this maze of, you know, specifications and products. I mean, I'm starting to get confused again. So I think that'll be helpful to the members next month. Okay, with that said, does anybody else have any other news items they want to share with the members? Going once, going twice. Okay,
Real quick,
okay.
There's going to be a big drop of software updates this week, probably on Tuesday. So it'll be update for Mac OS, updates for iOS, updates for iPad, updates for your Apple TV, a whole boatload of stuff. It'll include the latest, some of the latest things that has been in the buzz and talked about for a while that came out even last year, talked about last year when they released iOS 15. So that'll be coming out this week. Can't say anything about it, how good it is yet, but you know, people that I know that are on the beta say it's stable as can be. So I'm hopeful, but we'll see next week.
Okay. And what's your current advice, Rick? Should people immediately update or wait a week and then update?
I think on iOS, I would not hesitate. iPad OS, I wouldn't hesitate. The Apple TV, I wouldn't hesitate. On the Mac, if you've got some special software you run that's unique, I probably would wait till you see what people are experiencing. But this is like what, the third or fourth big go around. It should be pretty stable, but yeah. I'm going to update, but I think it depends on what kind of software you run.
Okay. All right. So with that said, that was the last news item. We're going to go to Dan Wyckoff, and he's going to give us a little bit of HomeKit stuff this morning. Ready, Dan?
Yep. So I'm going to talk about a couple of scenarios in which this device would be appropriate. One would be is if you have a lower level in your house, which is subgrade and maybe not as watertight as you would like, and you have a little bit of water seeping in around the outside walls, or you have a drain that constantly gets clogged, both of which are my house. Or you have a water using device on upper floors, such as a washing machine or a water heater, where if it were to spring a leak or a hose were to break, could potentially cause a lot of damage. So if I can, I'll share. This device is by the same company. Back in September, I talked about their device that hooks onto your hose bib, but this plugs into any outlet, and this is where I have it plugged in behind my washing machine, and you can see the cord coming off of it. The cord is it's like a cotton wrapped wire, and you can get extensions on these that, you know, it comes with I think a 2 meter long cord, and you can get extensions up to infinity, because they all just link together. But this basically gives you a alert on your phone or your HomeKit device that you've got a leak, and it's been a good sentinel in my basement, and unfortunately wakes you up in the middle of the night when there's a leak. But it saved my butt a couple of times in the fact that it, don't have wake up to a basement full of water, but rather, I can get down and address the situation before it gets too drastic.
Is there a sensor at the bottom of the cable?
No, the cable itself is the sensor.
Okay.
So you run the
Cotton
cable
gets wet.
across. Yeah, as soon as it gets any moisture on it, it alerts, and it goes into, and it alerts your phone, your HomeKit device, and it starts flashing and buzzing on the device itself. So if you don't have your phone with you, it'll tell you immediately there too. My one complaint is that the only way to shut the thing off or to take it out of alert mode is to just unplug the cord. There's no way to dismiss the alert on your phone. I guess they figure if you're trying to make sure that you're addressing the situation before, instead of dismissing it and leaving it in the middle of the night. So, but that's it. It works well. I still, just because there's no way to dismiss it, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. But it works well. It's a very simple device. Just needs to plug into any outlet. Any other questions?
And I guess it takes a while for the cord to dry out, so it's not sending a moisture signal.
Right, because it's just like it's a braided cotton or some kind of it's a wick. So as soon as you unplug it to shut the alarm off, I usually just hang it up to dry.
What's the suggested price for this?
I bought this back last year. I'm trying to remember. I'm thinking it was $99, $95 or something like that.
Okay.
Now you have to use it with HomeKit.
Well, it alarms itself. It's a HomeKit compatible, but you won't get any remote notification unless you connect it to HomeKit. They do. I take that back. They do have their own
app.
They do have their own app that you can load, and it'll work there as well. We'll get back to Zoom.
You're
Okay.
keeping track of the workers, making sure they're working when they're supposed to be. I noticed all the webcams, Dan. Did we lose Dan?
There he is.
There he is. He's back. What were all the were those webcams that you're monitoring that were on the screen, or was
No,
that just an example?
That's a photo of a new operating room renovation.
Okay. It just I was like, wow, he's got his eye on everything. Okay, let's move on to freebies wanted and for sale. So do we have any freebies that people have available this month? Okay, anybody looking for a freebie of a particular type? And we have a no on that. Anybody got anything for sale? Wake up, Dan.
Well, I can send the photos to Mark, but the new item that I have on my list is my Libratone lounge speaker. It was originally an AirPlay speaker, but it's only AirPlay 1. So if you have an older Apple device that's still running old iTunes setup, it'll AirPlay music, or but it's got a built-in 50-watt amplifier. It's pretty big monster. It's probably like 4 feet long and about a foot tall.
Okay. Any other inputs to it?
Yes, there's an auxiliary input that you could plug a stereo mini jack into.
Okay. Or like a guitar? through a amp and that, you know.
Yeah, I guess if you want to go that
Okay.
small. Most guitars I know of use 1/4 inch,
Okay.
but I'm looking to get about 150. It was originally retailed for, I think, $700. I'm looking to get 150.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you got still on your list, or did you clear out your backlog?
No, and everything that was on my list is still, I'm still looking to find a buyer for this 2013 MacBook
Okay.
Pro.
That's the one that you can't shut down.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one, which is we're in the barrel. Help desk. Okay. Anybody have any problems this month?
Oh, I just want to ask a question. Now we're on help desk.
Go for it.
I have a phone that I finally got unlocked by Spectrum. I've only had it for a year. And AT&T is trying to tell me that it's not 5G. It's a SE. It's a iPhone SE. What is it then?
Do you know what year?
I can answer the question without even knowing.
Oh, what, I'm just trying to say, what is it? If it's an iPhone SE, I've only had it a year. I've only had a year.
Okay. All right. Here's the scoop. If the iPhone SE, up until the one that was just released, it's not even, you can't even get it yet. They were all not 5G. They had 3G, they had LTE, but they did not have 5G. Now, AT&T, was it an AT&T phone? Do you know, was it AT&T?
No, it was given to me, it was sold to me by Spectrum.
So I don't know what it is, but they use Verizon network. So yeah, it's not 5G.
So what is it?
It's LTE. It's got
What's that?
LTE. LTE is like,
LTE.
it's the next thing. That's the last version of network. I mean, it's what everybody's using on their phone for the most part, except people that are using 5G. It's standard mobile internet. You know, it's your standard mobile data thing right now for most people.
Oh, okay.
The last version before 5G, and 5G is, while it's popular and it's available, there's a lot of phones out there that still don't have 5G capability. So they're more and more every day. And the new one that just came out, that they just launched, that Bill was talking about earlier, it has 5G, but it's the first time they put 5G in a phone at that low price.
And the iPad Air, if you get it with cellular, also would have 5G.
And that's brand new as well.
Yep.
It says there's an awful lot of towns out there that do not have any 5G.
So will
But I get
guys on TV that act like, oh boy, you get full 5G all around the United States.
will this work?
Yeah, but-
Will this work for a few years or?
Oh yeah, it'll be working for a long time. It'll work for a while. I can't tell you how long, because I don't know how long it'll take to migrate, but it'll work for a while. I mean, think about it. The 2G and 3G stuff, they just turned off. What was it? The 3G they just turned off, I think,
Yes.
a few weeks ago for
About 2
some
weeks
provider.
ago.
But that's been going on for 10, 15, 20 years. So it's going to be a long time before they do that. Now, I will say this, to Elton's comment, I have 5G on my iPhone. I drove from here all the way to Yellowstone last year, and I had 5G almost the whole trip. I was shocked. I could not believe. Now I'm on AT&T. I had 5G. I had 5G out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I was just shocked at how well the 5G covered that territory. I had 5G at Yellowstone. I was just astounded how good the 5G was. Now, it's not that way everywhere. I drove south from Yellowstone down through Utah, and there was big spurts where I only had nothing. I lost it completely. But the place here in Piqua, Ohio, little town Piqua, I can get 5G right here at my house, and my download speeds are almost 200 down on 5G. So 5G is getting better. It's not everywhere. It's not perfect, but I'm getting amazing 5G speeds places I never dreamed I would get 5G. So there is still some places that don't get it, but it's getting pretty broad. I'm shocked how much of it there is, and the speeds are really pretty amazing. And I'm not on the microwave. I'm in the the real good stuff. I'm on the medium level, they call it, but it's, or whatever they call it, but it's working really well for me.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
one of the issues, though. There isn't just one 5G. There's different flavors of 5G. Millimeter wave,
Yeah.
and then kind of the mid-frequency range. It's more
Yeah, you have
widely
to have-
available. It's just a
you have to
small
have it-
increase over 4G LTE.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, I'm using the slowest speed where it's not, I don't have the millimeter wave stuff, the real fast stuff. I'm not getting gigabytes of download speed, but I'm getting 100, 150, 200 down in Little Pickle, Ohio, and I'm getting that almost everywhere I go when I'm out and around where they've got 5G. So the chip that's in my phone has multiple bands that it works on, and it'll work on all of those bands. And the new chip that Apple's going to release next year works on even more bands. So it's not perfect. I'm not suggesting it's perfect, but it's not as bad as some of the reports. I'm very happy with the results I'm seeing, is all I'm saying. Me personally, where I use my iPhone, I'm getting really amazing results with AT&T. I don't know what anybody else is doing. I'm just telling you what my results are with AT&T on my iPhone 12.
Oh, okay.
That I need to look at here.
Yeah, all the.
I have a help question.
Oh, everything.
Go for it, George.
Okay, I was surfing 2 days ago, and all of a sudden, my screen, that's on my iMac, my screen got a different screen. It looked like it was from Apple, and it had something to do with spam or something bad.
Okay.
And
Just
please.
stop right there, George.
Okay.
Let me go, because I had the last 3 weeks, I've had 5 people call me at home saying that they got an alert about this. One of them, unfortunately, called the number that was on that alert. And they thought they were talking to Apple, and they let them have access to their laptop. But fortunately, it was a PC laptop. Anyway, that's what's called scareware. Scareware. It's completely, totally bogus. What it usually means is that the website somehow has been compromised, and so if you see something like that comes up and it tells you that you've got a vulnerability and, et cetera, all this terrible stuff, and they've got that number to call and et cetera, it's bogus, it's fake, it's fraudulent. Don't call the number. These people will want to charge you $2,000 to fortify your firewall. Okay. I mean, I could see it if it was a firewall in an apartment building between 2 physical structures. It might cost $2,000 to fireproof a wall between 2 apartments. But if you're talking about software settings, which is what firewall is, software settings, it doesn't cost $2,000 to do that. So these people are basically con artists. They're hucksters. They're crooks. Bad people.
Essentially, it has nothing.
Anybody got another pejorative we can throw in? Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Apple, right?
It has absolutely nothing to do with Apple. The thing that bothered me the most about the person who had let them in, she has everything else she has is Apple, and she was on her Lenovo PC and this popped up. She thought Apple was helping her fix her PC. Yeah. Okay, right there, I would have gone, no, an Apple support person would not be touching a PC.
Okay.
And so, unfortunately, she let him into her computer. From what I was able to tell, they actually made a duplicate copy of her hard drive. And they kept her busy on the phone for about 45 minutes. It took me 2 days. I ended up just re-imaging the PC. That was the only way I could be sure there were no hooks or worms or something else still in it. So when you see that, the best thing to do is to close Safari and then reopen Safari and then clear your Safari cache.
Yeah, I use the you know, where you force the quit.
Yep.
So actually I had to do it twice. And so you've answered my question. You've allayed my fears.
And it was an excellent question because it reminded me to warn everybody about this stuff. It's out there again.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, who else have we got? Okay,
George
you have
Herzog's
to,
had a hand up. Larry Sayers has got a hand up.
let's do Larry first. I think he's older. He's got less time on the earth, so we'll take care of him. Plus, he's a farmer.
That's right. I just wanted to tell you this week I had one where PayPal looked like PayPal was asking me or had a charge related to crypto. And so I just notified PayPal and they said, yep, it's a scam. And they had me, I don't know, I called it spoof.com or something, send it to them. And they said it was totally bogus. So if anybody else has got one that says, hey, here's the latest buy you made on PayPal for some kind of crypto related thing, that's what it was.
Okay, Larry, you mentioned a website, spoof.com.
Let's see, somewhere I ought to have that here. I'm not sure.
Okay, you don't have to bring it up right now, but if you could research that and just send that to us.
Hey, Bill.
Yes, go ahead.
It's called spoof@paypal.com.
Yeah.
Is where you would
Okay.
where you forward the email you got that you think is bogus. You forward it to them. They'll contact you and let you know whether it's real or not.
Okay. Okay, so it's a PayPal specific thing.
And it was really
spoof at PayPal.
It was really quick. I have to admit, it was a good service.
Okay.
Apple has a spoof email address too, where you forward spoof to them as well. And I don't remember what it is. I'll look it up and let you know. But but they don't contact you, but they do take the spoofed email. They like to have them.
Okay. But then they don't do anything to help you. They just collect the info.
They do the info and they go off and do their work, but they just don't let you know that they don't respond to you.
Okay.
They just do it, and then
they just instruct me what to do. They said just basically send us the spoof email and then dump it.
Okay. All right. So we're done with Larry, unless Larry has a second thing.
All done.
George.
Larry's good. Okay. Now we're going to George.
I had another question, but I'd like to play off of Larry's comment briefly. For several days in a row, I was getting something from a very strange address that said I had made a purchase on PayPal for the same dollar amount of $27.98 every time. And there are a lot of suspicious things about the dates that I supposedly had placed this order were different from the email.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was obviously how do they tie into, how are they able to send you a message like that? How
You just pick your email.
Yeah.
It's a junk email and they make it look like PayPal. I've gotten several of those things and you know, they just let their email or whatever look like PayPal. And then when you click on it, you go to them, not PayPal, and then they do what they want to do.
So they just send that out, just broadcast that to every email address they can find in the world and hope.
Absolutely. It's just like every other piece of junk mail.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, my other question was a little more pedestrian. I send out emails to people, usually the ones that are a little more thoughtful and a little longer, don't get a response. And I have to end up in going back to my iPhone and texting. I'm not a big texter, and say, would you please check your email? Is there any way I can send the same content both to email and to by text without having to duplicate my efforts?
What kind of stuff are you attaching to your email?
Well, even when it's not an attachment, if it's just a lengthier text where I don't feel like thumbing my way through.
Well, do it in your email, copy and paste it into your messages.
Yeah, I can do that. There's no way to just address it to both. Once I'm in one application, I can't cross over to the other, is what you're saying?
Not
You can
really.
email, you can email a text message, but I forget how you do it. I mean, I know you can do it because I get text messages that way. There's some email address depending on who your provider is, but I can't, I'm gonna have to do some research, George. I don't remember.
Yeah, I
Okay.
tried just, you know, I guess I can email, I can text to an email address, but it depends on what device you're on as to where, what device it goes to, I guess. In other words, if I use my email address and I'm on my laptop, I can't make that go to somebody else's text.
You can with iMessage. I sent a message to somebody last night to an email address by SMS, but I use iMessage to do it.
If
So
you go
if
into
you're not on an
text,
Apple device, yeah.
yeah, if you go into text and just select the text window that you want to copy, and then it'll come up and you select copy, and then you can paste it into an email
Okay.
or vice versa.
Okay, and then I think Rick may have touched on another complication. Maybe this has been resolved, but a while back, if a person was on a not on an Apple operating system, if you're on Android, you couldn't cross over. Is that?
Well, you
So
can
you can cross
copy and
over.
paste.
You can send them messages, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
it'll be green instead of blue.
Yeah.
And it gets to the cellular system instead of going over the internet per se.
Okay, I'll try it.
Okay.
Now you got one more, Mr. Grant's up, Dell Grant.
Okay.
I do. You've probably addressed this before, but I'm interested in knowing what the consensus is for antivirus software for the Mac.
I don't recommend active protection antivirus software on the Macintosh platform. On the iPhone, the iPad, the iWatch, it is totally unnecessary, and the stuff that is available doesn't really do what they say it does. I'm open to hearing what other Apple gurus have to say. Bill Howe, what do you say?
I've been using Norton, but not for mostly antivirus, just for other protection. They have a complete package with what's the
It's Norton 365.
Yeah, they merged with the
Semantic.
no,
Oh, no, McAfee got bought by somebody else.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I want to say Avast and McAfee merged. That Avast bought McAfee, but they're still running their stuff as McAfee. But it depends on what you're doing. If you send a lot of emails with attachments, so you've got Microsoft Word documents coming in, and then you're looking at those, and then you're sending them back out to people. When I'm doing that sort of stuff, I use a Macintosh, which has the full Norton antivirus, anti-malware suite, because it scans those attachments to make sure that they don't have anything on it. But for my production machines, I only put one thing on it, and that's the stuff from, let me look real quick. And let me go to applications. This is on my wife's machine.
my
Avast?
Norton is tied in with LifeLock.
Is it Avast?
Malwarebytes?
Malwarebytes?
Yeah, Malwarebytes. No, it's Bitdefender. Bitdefender. Now, Bitdefender does not do active protection. So the difference is Norton's like you hired a security guard. He's walking around your building 24 hours a day, rattling the doorknobs, making sure stuff is shut, chasing the smokers back in and telling them not to leave the cigarette butts. Bitdefender is where when you want to check that things are okay, you turn it on, it does a scan of your machine and the things, the data that's on it, and then it gives you a report. if it spots something that isn't what it should be, it'll attempt to quarantine it. In some cases, it'll attempt to remove whatever the malware is from the document, but it almost always is not able to do it.
Well, my Bitdefender is active because it's got an icon up in the menu bar that shows if it's scanning something that's coming into my computer, it does it actively.
Yeah,
It
I'm
also has
using the free version.
It also has a scan feature. There's also a VPN available if you want it, but I've been using Bitdefender for about 4 years now.
Yeah. But the reason why I've got it where I only run it when I want to scan is because these are the machines where I'm doing intensive stuff on it. And if I'm rendering a video, if I'm doing some of the artificial intelligence stuff I've been known to do, which never turns out well, I want the machine totally dedicated to that process. I don't want anything else interfering with it. So that's why on those machines, I use a passive defense. On the other machines, I'm using an active defense, and I'm always using the latest generation of web browsers because it's more likely that an exploit is going to come in via the web browsing rather than the emails nowadays. Okay, does that help at all?
I think so.
I have a comment about this. She's got her hand up.
Sure. Rita, you have a comment?
Oh,
Rita's
no, I-
next.
I was next.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just a curiosity. Last night, Dan did a FaceTime call to me.
Yeah.
And it rang on my iPad, but didn't ring on my phone. And they were next to each other.
Yeah.
Mine does that also. If your iPad is close to your iPhone, it will ring on your iPad instead of your phone because
Well, I mean,
I assume
yeah, a lot of times both of them will ring.
Yeah.
But this time the phone didn't ring at all. And when I went to the recent calls on my phone, it wasn't even listed.
Wow.
Is your iPad running latest and greatest iOS?
I'm up as far as I can go on this. It's an old iPad.
Okay, so it may be one step back from what's on the phone. The phone's running 15.
Right. And I think
Okay.
I think the iPad's like 12.
Yeah,
That may have something to do with it too.
Yeah.
But I've never
What-
had that happen before. And it was like,
Have you recently upgraded your phone?
It's been probably right after this last update came up.
Yeah.
It's
So you're
supposed
Maybe
to-
what's caused it?
What's supposed to happen is the device that you're using, if it thinks you're using the device or you most recently used, that's the one that's supposed to do it on. And mine does that all the time on the phone or the iPad, depending on what I used last. But when you've got different versions running, I'm not sure how it's going to respond to that. I mean, I don't know that I would panic about it, but it's just some abnormality in the way that it's dealing with that old version, I think.
Yeah, I never had that happen before. And it just seemed kind of strange that the iPad did it and the phone didn't even record it.
It happens. All right.
okay.
Shane is
And
next. Sean is next.
okay, Shauna, go for it.
Just to go back to the antivirus, University of Dayton was using semantic endpoint protection. We are transitioning off of that to a product called CrowdStrike Falcon Sensor. And this is enterprise level, not end user home level.
Is that from
application.
ESET?
Yes,
The guys in Germany, ESET?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting.
And that's because you want to be consistent across your platform because you have Intel, you have PCs and Macs and other devices, and you want to have it consistent across.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you doing anything special to? Are you doing anything special to fortify printers?
No.
Okay.
All right, George is next.
I'll follow up further on the antivirus. I've got Malwarebytes, but it's an older version. I was going to upgrade it, and then I noticed that they give you a 14-day freebie, which is the one you manually have to implement each time you want to scan. But I was concerned that after 14 days, I'm going to have to pay for a premium service that I don't really want. Is that true, or does it just drop? Does the premium service just drop off?
Have you given them a credit card or anything?
No.
Then they'll probably let you know that, your trial is expiring and, here's a link to sign up. And if you don't sign up and give them your credit card, then, they've got nothing to do.
Just ignore it then.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, who we got next?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
My question is this. I have changed iCloud storage in my my own Mac OS and also iPhone to 50 gigabytes. And my wife is supposed to be a member, and she is a member. Now I want to include her, increase her storage to that. Then I found out my wife's SE second generation still have just I think 5 gigabytes. And it says, well, would you like to change to 50 gigabytes with iCloud Plus? I said, okay. Then I see that you have to pay right away for that 50 gigabytes. Can I get the money back after the system notice that this is the same family?
It's not the same family. It's each individual Apple ID.
All right.
So
Yeah, but you can
Family share.
yeah,
you can do a family share. If you go into the family share plan, you're gonna
But
have to
it
call
doesn't
Apple
take
about
it
getting your money back.
unless,
Well, you're gonna have to talk to Apple about that. But if you go into your account, and
okay,
you add your wife in the family share plan,
Yes.
you put her in your family,
I
and say
send out
you
an
want to share
invite.
that memory, then you should share that, and you should share that same memory.
But
I do that with
cannot
my
confirm.
my wife. Well, you're gonna have to call Apple. We can't troubleshoot that, but that's how it works. I mean, it does work, but even to get your money back, you're gonna have to call Apple.
You have to call Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just add something there, Derek.
Yeah.
What Rick was referring to is Apple IDs and Apple accounts.
Yep.
It used to be my wife had a separate Apple ID. I had a separate Apple ID.
I still do.
We were, she wanted to use a program I had already purchased through mine,
Okay.
but it wasn't available and we didn't want to pay twice.
Uh-huh.
And so what you can do is you can link IDs together into a family plan. If I'm correct, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you can have up to 5 IDs linked
Yes.
together in a
Right.
family plan, but one of them has to be the adult, the administrator of the plan. And what we did when we did that, when we linked our 2 accounts together, I made my wife's account be the administrator account. Now I did that because 1, she's going to outlive me. And 2, when Christmas comes around, she gets iTunes cards and another Apple gift cards from her offspring, and they don't. It's like me; they don't give that to. It's a dry well for me. So since she's got money going into that Apple account anyway, it makes more sense for her account to be the owner and the purchaser of iCloud services and of applications that are purchased. So I'm just throwing some extra stuff at you, and hopefully I haven't confused you.
50
But
gigabytes is
in
only
the end, Bill,
99 cents anyways.
in the end, Bill, I mean, the thing is, what he has to have is he has to have a family account. He has to have shared accounts, and he has to set that up in the family area of settings iCloud, and you have to set that up, number 1. And then number 2, you have to buy memory and say you're going to share that memory. And if he does that, it should work. And if he's having a problem with that, that's going to require a call to Apple to fix it if there's a problem. And if he wants to get money back on something he did wrong, that's who you got to talk to anyway.
Correct.
It's only
Correct,
99
right.
cents and I don't think it's worth the trouble. Just cancel it.
All right, George is next, I think, unless we have more
Oh,
there.
yeah, I've got an iPhone SE that I just
Triple
recently-
dipper.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
back for a
go for it.
third.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll just fill up the time here if you want
You,
me to.
you got to show your Ohio Buckeye card to get the third question.
Okay.
Okay, thumbs good
up-
enough.
iPhone SE upgraded just recently to 15.3.1. I don't often use it to look at emails, but I did have a Gmail account, and I find that I can no longer access my emails. I wonder if that's a result of the upgrade or I have some other issue going on.
That's weird.
More likely you have other issues going on. What I would do is remove the Gmail account from your phone and then reset it up on your phone.
Okay.
I agree.
Because Google's been upping their security, and it just that's the easiest way to handle it.
Okay.
Okay. Have we got
right.
anybody else?
We got one more, Barb.
Okay, Barb Grafe.
Yes, there's you were talking about accounts and so forth. There's something I'd like to share with the membership. Recently, I had to contact Spectrum. We were on an old package that was going to expire. So I called them and they could not give me any kind of information because the account was in Dawn's name. And I remember when I changed accounts earlier, they wanted a death certificate.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it was a hassle. They put in a ticket that so the deceased team could call me with my options. I just wanted to let people know if there's only one name on the account, put your spouse on too, so that maybe there isn't that issue for you later.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
One of the things that I learned was I was on Spectrum. It was in my name. I asked my wife to deal with them because I didn't want to deal with them anymore because they had jacked up the price. They refused to talk to her.
Right.
Okay. So what she then did was deactivated the account, basically closed the account. They'll let you do that. And then she reopened one in her name.
Well, actually, that's what happened. I finally got a hold of an agent because the deceased team was taking forever. And he said, well, we can take care of that. And he closed Dawn's and then put me in as a new account. So I got a good deal.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it's a death certificate. I had no problems with DP&L or the phone companies, but Spectrum wanted a death certificate and they weren't going to get that.
So one of the weirdnesses, okay, I'm putting it, at one point I was a district consumer affairs manager for a department store team. So all I handled were the unhappy customers. Okay. And so I still track that, you know, what happens in terms of consumer affairs. The industry with the absolute lowest customer satisfaction numbers are cable companies. And it's really tough to find anyone in North America that will say anything good about a cable company. So
well, that was from experiences that you've had with them.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill,
So-
it's 11 o'clock. I'm not sure how long Rick's presentation is going to be.
Okay, so
we need
what
to
I'm going
wind
to
up.
say is we're going to call it, we're going to pull the hook on help desk. We're going to go straight to the raffle. And you folks have a new streamlined process for doing the raffle?
No.
Just cut new numbers.
You got your numbers, right?
How many people do we have?
Oh, can I ask a question first?
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is related to the question I asked earlier. I have this iCloud storage of 50 gigabytes. Should I also increase the storage in Google Chrome.
Why don't you check
Okay.
and see how much storage is being used? And, you know, if you've only got 10 or 20 gigabytes in Apple storage, then you probably don't need to make it any bigger. If you're almost to 50, then you probably need to increase.
What I mean is if you don't have, well, does Apple's, the storage will store everything that I have in the Chrome.
Okay. Chrome is a separate company than Apple.
Yeah,
Do you
okay.
have things which use Google operating systems, Android phones, Chrome boxes, anything like that? Or is all your stuff Apple?
No, I have something in the other computer, Windows computer, yes. But I
Okay,
but wait, most of the things I do, I go to the Chrome from my iMac.
Okay. So
Instead
you're
of going to
using
sometimes Safari, but other time in Chrome. Because
Okay,
Safari
so
sometimes doesn't work.
okay, let me see if I can clarify it. You've got two different companies, Google and Apple, and they're for-profit companies, and they have different ways of making money.
Okay.
One of the ways that Apple makes money is they're selling you additional storage for your backups
Right.
for all your devices. So this is like a safety belt, okay, if something bad happens with those devices. Google typically does not make that much money off of selling you storage. They make their money from selling information about you. If you don't have any Google devices, okay, a PC is not a Google device.
Okay.
There's no reason to pay for Google storage in your instance.
Okay. So if I have, if I use the, I don't know what that is.
If you're using the Google web browser, the storage capabilities that come with the web browser for free will be more than adequate for you, Derek.
Okay, okay.
It's only if you're doing stuff with Google Drive, what's called G Drive, or you're doing stuff on, I'm blanking here on the Microsoft cloud storage.
Oh, OneDrive.
OneDrive. You know, they all want you to give them money for that storage. But the thing is, if you've got one PC and everything else is Apple, there's no reason for you to be paying for additional storage on Google and on Microsoft. The Apple cloud storage for your devices is all you really need to worry about.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Did I do that okay, Bill? Bill Howe?
Yeah.
Okay. I am concerned that he needed to buy more storage. It makes me wondering, you know, how his settings are.
For Google
in terms
or
of photo
Apple?
storage for Apple, you
Oh.
know, is he using
Yeah.
iCloud Drive? Is he using okay, I've got to
You can go
review my.
into, yeah, you can go in and see
Yeah.
how much space you're using on that 50 gigabytes for 99 cents. And I think if you up that, it goes to like $1.99. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, I had a situation where my wife kept getting that message that, you know, you need more space. And then when
Right.
we looked at it, she had backups from computers and phones that she didn't have anymore.
Yeah.
And iPads that she didn't have anymore. And once we deleted those backups for devices she no longer owned or used, she was well within the 5 gig.
That's one reason why you need to go into Apple's ID there and remove those devices, even though, you know, because just because you're not using them anymore or you've, you know, done something else, that's still showing up as your devices.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe, are you almost ready, Kathy?
Should we
We're
move
at,
on?
we need to move on because we're out of time.
I apologize to Rick that I wasn't managing the time very well. Since we're at 11:06, I'm going to say let's not do a break unless if somebody needs to take a break, just mute yourself and go off video and take care of your biological situation. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Rick Cartwright for his presentation on Keychain and the Keychain Access app.
So I wanted to take a little deep dive into how Apple's Keynote works as a password manager, and in the process, learned a lot of things that I think are going to be interesting just to discuss, and I hope it's helpful to everybody. When this is all done, it's a little long, so when you get your copy of the presentation, go through it. If you have questions, if there's something in there that you don't understand, don't hesitate to call me, and we'll go from there. Is everybody still there?
Yeah.
All right. I'm having some strange behaviors that I didn't expect. All right. So do you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. That took a little extra. I usually present from my iPad. I decided today to present from my Mac, first time in a long time. And I had enabled some preferences that I needed to fix. So I got this fixed. All right. So this is not our bill. This is just something that you see all the time. Have you ever walked into somebody's office and you look around, and I had this happen. I've had this happen so many times, I can't tell you. And they got Post-it notes stuck all over the place with their passwords stuck on them. And then their passwords are things like 12345 or password 123 or things like this. This is the most common thing you see in business, and you see it on people's stuck right on their Mac or wherever they got them. These are just common things. And then recently I have a friend, his name is John, her name is Sherry, and they bought a new iPhone, and they had me come over to the house and help them set up their new iPhone. So I go over and we start working through the process. And the next thing you know, he pulls out 50 sheets of paper, and every piece of paper has a different password for the same thing. So he had Apple IDs under 5 or 6 different passwords. Only one of them could be right. And it took us forever to log into his Apple account on the new phone because he didn't know for sure which password was the right password. And this is a common problem. This is the kind of thing that you can avoid if you're using some kind of password manager. So while I admire the fact that he had these pieces of paper with all these different passwords on it, I have to tell you, you do yourself a big favor if you start thinking about how to document your passwords someplace where they're secure, where you can remember what they are, where they're safely put away. In this case, we talk about they're encrypted so that other people can't get access to them. And the other thing, you want passwords, and Bill talked about this in the last presentation he did, you want the passwords to be complex. By that, I mean unique and something that's hard for somebody to figure out. And you want to know where you can find your password. In my buddy's case, John, he knew where the passwords were. He knew they were on this piece of paper, but what he didn't seem to know is there was 15 pieces of paper, all with the same password, and they were all different. So that was a real nightmare. And the other thing is, it's really nice with some of these new password managers like Apple's password Keychain. It looks to see if there's been hacks to passwords, like maybe you've got this common password you use, and that password has showed up in recent hacks on the internet. So let's say I have a password that's Rick12345, and I use that password on multiple sites, which is a really bad habit to get into. But in recent hacks, that password has showed up in the database that is being used. A lot of these new password managers will actually find that that password is a common password and alert you that you shouldn't be using that password. So these are some of the reasons you want to use a password manager. This is not all the reasons, but these are really important reasons why you should think about using a password manager. Now, today, we're not going to talk about all the password managers that are out there. We're just going to talk about Keychain. Keychain is Apple's built-in password manager of sorts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and try to walk you through it a little bit. I hope you can understand how it works. There are some complexities to Apple's keychain that I will also talk about that make it a little complicated. So here's the pros and cons of Apple's password keychain. The pros, number one, it is free. It doesn't cost you a penny to use it. It does use iCloud. It's inside the iCloud tools. So it uses a little bit of your iCloud space, but it's relatively small. It doesn't use a lot of space. So using it isn't going to cost you a lot of space. It's built into the OS. Now, this is a complication because there's not an application that you go to. I've used 1Password before. I've used Secret before. These are applications that are password managers that you can click on an icon and it opens an application and it manages your passwords. It's not that way with Keychain. Keychain is built into the operating system. It's part of the OS. And I'm going to show you today how it works inside the Mac and how it works inside of the iPhone and the iPad. But the fact that it's inside the OS and not a separate application can be confusing. So we'll try to walk through that a little bit and help you understand it. You can get in and see your passwords, but it's just not like it's a simple click this app and you're in. You got to go into the OS and we'll show you how you do that. But it does solve these password issues that we talked about earlier. It does give you a place to put your password. It helps you to create unique, complex passwords. It helps you know where they're at. It encrypts them. It protects them from other people. It does all those things. And it does it really, really good enough to be an alternative to consider. The cons, like I said, is there's no app. It's just part of the OS and it's fragmented inside the OS. So you got to go different places to do some different things, which makes it a little complex to use. Does that make sense to everybody? You got to picture what this thing is. So I just want to kind of lay out the pros and cons so you have an idea. Now, how do you turn on Keychain? How do you make it work? So I'm going to show you what it is, but I wanted to start off with just how do you turn it on? So you turn it on your iPhone or your iPad this way. You go into settings, then you go into iCloud, and then you click on iCloud Keychain, which looks like what it does here on the right. And it may ask you for your passcode for your phone or your Apple ID, but if it does, you just give them that information, then it'll turn green like that, and you're using iCloud Keychain. It's that simple. On the Mac, it's a little bit different, not a lot. You go into the Apple menu at the top of your screen, click on the little apple, click on System Preferences, then click on your ID. In this case, this is Jacqueline. You click on your ID, and then you go over and you turn on the keychain, select iCloud Keychain, and that'll turn on Keychain. And that's it. That's how you start using Keychain. And you may already have it turned on and not know it, but you have to go in and turn that on in order to be able to use Keychain. You may use no other iCloud service at all, but you can use this one by just turning on iCloud Keychain. Now I put this list of frequently asked questions here for a reason. I'm not going to dive into this because we don't have time, but I wanted this here because I think there's a few things that you can read about later that just help you get a picture of how Keychain works. Number one thing I wanted to point out is that your data is protected. It's end-to-end encrypted, which means it's protected all the way through the system, across the data transfer, everywhere. The data is totally protected. But the big one I wanted to point out is the last item here. Can Apple recover my iCloud security code? If you lose your security code and you can't get into Keychain, you could get locked out, and Apple will not be able to let you in because this is encrypted. So you just want to be careful not to get locked out of this thing. Something to be aware of. We're not going to dive deep into that, but just something to think about. All right. What about these passwords? Where are they stored? How can you look at your passwords and see what your passwords are? To find that on your iPhone, you go into settings, and then there's a separate entry in settings called passwords. You click on settings, and it'll bring up all your passwords. So this is the middle screen is what you'll see. We'll talk in a few minutes about autofill. Security recommendations would be if you have some issues, like for example, you've got a password that's used a lot on the internet, it would say, oh, you should change this password. I have a lot of these recommendations on mine. And recommendations are things you should just look through those when they come up and decide if you should do them. But then you have a list of all the passwords you have. This person has a password for the acorns.com site, the AE.com site, Affinity Store. They have a whole bunch of passwords in there. If you click on one of those, then you'll get the screen, like this is the screen for Discord. It'll give a username, the password, and then you can also use the two-factor verification code if you need it, if it requires it. You can set that up in here as well, and we'll walk through that in a couple of minutes. But this is where they're stored on your iPhone or on your iPad. It looks the same. And this is how you would look at your passwords to see what they are. This is inside your Mac. It's a lot the same. You go into passwords inside of settings, system preferences, or inside of the system preferences, the Apple, and then system preferences. So go into passwords, and then you'll see all your passwords the same as before. You click on one, and you can see what the username is and what the password is, what the website is if you put it in there. All that stuff will be right there so you can look at it. So here's a database of all your passwords. So instead of that piece of paper we talked about earlier, all your passwords, once you store them in here, are stored in this one place. You can look at them on any of your devices and see exactly what your passwords are. And it's that simple, just to see them and see what they are. So let's talk a little bit about how you put passwords in here and how you use this when you're logging into websites and stuff like that. Before we go there though, any questions on how this thing works as far as the database, seeing your passwords, seeing what they look like, that type of thing? I don't see any questions or hands, but I don't see everybody, but. All right. So these are just some more screens to show you how you get into it on your Mac. I don't know why I had that in twice, but that's what it looks like. Now let's say I want to add a new password. I've got a new website I'm going to, and I'm going to call this the demo website. And I want to add a password, and I want to add my two-factor authentication code. Now the two-factor authentication code is that thing where when you log into a website, sometimes they'll send you a code, sometimes over messages, sometimes other ways. When this is where you store how to generate those codes if you have a generator. This is the generator to generate those. So here it is on the Mac. There's a link down there to how you actually go to read more about this. But if you go into the password setting, up at the top where the red circle is, you click the plus button. That says, I want to add a new password. See the plus button up at the top with the circle around it? It's right up here. I guess I can't do that, but it's up at the top. You click the plus sign. Then on the second screen on your left, you get this add password. It asks you, what is the website that I'm adding a password for? What is the username? It could be an app instead of a website. You could put the name of an app too, but usually you put the website. The username, so you add your username, and then you add the password if you already have one. Now, they will generate a password for you. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But if you have one that you've done from before, you can just type the password in right here and then click done when you're finished adding that password. Once you do that, if you click, see, I set one up here. I called it the website demo.com. Once you've done that, there's another button down there right under that thing where you see it says change password or on website or set up verification code. If you use two-factor verification codes, a lot of sites today use two-factor verification codes. We're not going to go into what they are, how they work today, because there's just not enough time to do that. But if your site that you're in says that they want to set up a two-factor verification code, they will give you a QR code or something that you can use to scan, and you can enter that information here. It says where it says scan QR code. If you hit scan QR code, you use your camera, scan that code that they give you, and then you can enter it, or you can enter a setup key that they also will give you. Either way, it'll work, and then it'll set up the two-factor verification code. Now, this is so that somebody can't. This gives two factors. So if somebody tries to log into demo.com and they're not me, they would not have my device. You want people when they try to fake that they're you, if they put in a password, they got your password somehow, they enter their username and the password. If two factors turned on, they also have to have access to your phone or your computer to get this code. If they don't have that, then they still won't be able to get in. So two-factor forces people to double check to make sure they are who they say they are because they have your device. Does that make sense? I mean, I know it sounds complicated, but it's just a way of verifying that who's trying to log into your site is really you, bottom line. But you enter this code or you scan the QR code or enter the setup key, and then it'll set up this code for you. Once you do that, when you're logging into this site, it'll come up and say, enter your password and username. You punch that in, you'll say, okay. Then it'll say, enter your code. And you'll get your code right from this app. It'll put it in there so you can log in. On the Mac, this is how it looks. I got my username, my password, and then I can enter my setup code for the verification. Again, the same as before. Here, they don't ask you to take a picture of the QR code. They just ask you to enter the setup key because it's on a Mac, and they don't assume necessarily you have a camera. And then when you set that up, bang, you're done. Now you've set up a new password. You've stored it in the database. It's in your keychain, and it'll be in your keychain until you delete it. And then, how do you autofill passwords? So now we've got this password in our database, and we want to search around the web. And when we get to a website, we want, Teresa, that glare is killing me. You get to a website, you want to be able to autofill your password and log into the website. So I'm going to demo.com, and I want it to log me in when I go there automatically. I don't want to have to open the database, find the password, then copy and paste it. I want it to happen automatically. So every time I go to that website, it just logs me in as part of the operating system. This is one of the really cool features of Keychain, that it just lets you auto log in without you having to punch the buttons. So here's an example. I logged into the Apple developer account. So I have a developer account. I use the email richard@rickcartwright.com as my login to this account. So when I go to the Apple developer website, I get this screen and it says Apple ID. So it wants to know the Apple ID for logging into this developer account. Now notice down at the bottom, I got this pop-up that says log in to apple.com using iCloud Keychain ? So it's saying, do you want to use the information in your keychain to log into this account? So again, it's going to take the information and wants to know if I want it to take the information from Keychain and use that information to log into this website. So if I click that richard@rickcartwright.com, it'll populate the Apple ID field with that account information, and then I can hit the little arrow and it'll take me to the next screen. And what it'll end up doing is it'll fill that account with the password and the name and log me into the account, which is really great because then you don't have to remember it. You don't have to go copy and paste it. You don't have to go look for it. You just log in with it. Now, you say, how do you set up auto-populating autofill? There's a couple different ways. This is where it gets a little messy. In Safari on your Mac, if you go to settings, if you go to preferences in Safari, there's actually a button called autofill, a tab for autofill. And you can say use information from your contacts. So you could autofill contact information like who you are, but you can also autofill people's names and passwords. You can also autofill credit card information. So there's a lot of stuff you can do, but the one you care about here is the usernames and passwords. So you can autofill password information. Inside the iOS and iPad OS, this is a screen you get. This is in settings, passwords, and you notice that iCloud Keychain, it says autofill passwords. Where do you want to get the information? On mine, I have it set up to autofill little check marks beside iCloud Keychain. So I'm instructing my iPhone and my iPad, get password information from iCloud Keychain. You can, there's other apps that'll show up if they are supported. I'm not going to go into each of these. Secret is a third-party app that I use too. and I turned that one on. So you can have multiple sources of password information, and you can enable multiple sources. But you could only, if you want to, just use one. You could just use iCloud Keychain. In that case, you would only have a check mark beside iCloud Keychain. But that's on your iPad and iOS. It's in settings, password. And this is where it gets a little confusing because there's so many different places, but this is how you do it inside your iPhone or your iPad. Now, how do you generate passwords? So, you don't want to, how do you automatically generate these passwords rather than making them up on yourself? So, you don't want password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you get it to generate passwords for you? So let's say I'm in Safari and I've gone to a website, and whatever it is, it could be Facebook or some other thing, and you'll get this pop-up. Once you enable this feature, you'll get this pop-up. This Safari will automatically create strong passwords. And you see there on the right where it says password, you got that really funny looking password, XUBKAW-FUZ, on and on and on and on. That's an automatically generated password. And you can tell it to generate those automatic passwords. And once it generates them, it will also store those passwords in Keychain, as well as your ID, your user ID. So when you select use strong password, if you wanted to do that, you would click use strong password. It would generate that strong password. It would save it inside Keychain. And then you could go look at it by going back to the database and looking at it. Or when you log in the next time, it'll automatically fill the password field with the information right from Keychain. Does that make sense? I'm not hearing a word. I guess it makes sense. I mean, the key thing here is to know that A, it's going to automatically generate a password for you. B, it's going to automatically store that password inside of Keychain and put it in there so you have access to it. And the last thing is it's going to be a password that's going to be really hard for somebody to figure out. So all those things are going to happen automatically just by automatically letting it generate passwords for you and store them in Keychain. And it'll do that over and over again. Now, if you said, don't use it, then you could create your own password. If you, instead of clicking use strong password, you said don't use, and you wanted to use some password of your own making, you could type in your own password. It would store that and save that the same way. Just make sure it's a secure password that somebody can't figure out. And Bill gave some guidance on that in the last presentation he did, and I'm not going to go back through that. And here's the same process of loading a password. So now I'm logging into this site, and you'll see this. This is inside your iPhone. So I'm logging in. I went to the website, or this is an app actually. You'll see this little thing show up where it's got a little key for the keychain. It says passwords. If you click that button, it'll actually go into your keychain and find the password. So if it doesn't automatically fill a password inside an app and you want to use the password that's in your keychain, you click that little key password field and it'll go into your keychain, grab the password for that app. Maybe it uses a keychain from the web, but it'll grab that and it'll paste it into your login and your password field. So that's how you automatically in an app would grab a password and pull it in and use it right from your keychain. All right. That's how you use passwords using Apple Keychain, and we did that in record time. I wanted to talk about a couple other things real quick, and then we'll go back and answer questions because there's got to be some questions. The first one is a thing called secure notes. You may want to store some kind of note inside the keychain outside of a password. Maybe you've got some insurance information or something else. Maybe you've got a picture, and I'll show you an example here. And you want to store that in secure notes inside your keychain on your Mac. And I don't think you can do this on your iPhone, by the way. This is only on the Mac. There is an actual app called Keychain Access. See it right in the middle of the screen? It says Keychain Access. If you go into your apps and you go into the utilities and then look for this keychain. That's keychain access. You click on keychain access. It will open up your keychain database, and you will see all your passwords there, just like you saw them in the other place. So this is just another way to get to your database. But here, if you click File, you can click Add New Secure Note Item. So you can add something other than passwords and store them inside of your keychain. So here, you click New Secure Note Item, and then you'll get this field called Keychain Item. You give it a name. I called it Demo Note, and then I pasted a picture from the last screen we did. I pasted the picture right in the secure note. And then if I click Add, it'll store that in the database, and it'll be secured, encrypted, and protected just like passwords are, and stuck in there so I can come back and find it later. So if maybe I've got a screenshot of my insurance card or a screenshot of my driver's license or something that I want to protect for whatever reason, and I want to store it inside here as a secure note, I can paste a picture in here, I can paste text, whatever I want to paste inside here, I can paste it in here and then save it and add it into the database as a secure item. And I don't use this a lot. I know people that do use it a lot, but I have probably less than 2 or 3 things in here. But you may find stuff that a lot of you like to protect, and this is a secure way. It's encrypted, it's protected. Even Apple can't get to it. It's secure, so it's a very safe way to guard your data. The other thing I wanted to mention was I didn't put any slides on it, but credit card information. You can autofill credit cards using the same process. So I do this. If you have credit cards stored in your Apple wallet, if you have credit cards stored in your wallet, or you store them using the web browser, you store them, then those will all be in a database, and they are encrypted, and you can autofill credit card information. So let's say I go to a site and I want to buy something, and it'll bring up a pop-up window, and you can click in that pop-up window which credit card you want to use, and it'll pull that out of the encrypted database and put it in and fill the credit card. A lot of people are not real comfortable with that one, and I don't blame you, but it is there, it is available. I use it a lot, and I don't feel threatened by it. But it's something you have to just be thoughtful about, because if somebody else has your phone or whatever, I guess they could go start buying stuff. But that's how that works. So let's answer questions, and I'm going to get out of the presentation so that I can see everybody, and we'll talk about your questions. And then when you get the presentation, if you get the presentation, you have questions, feel free to email me, and I'll try to answer those questions. There's a lot of information in the presentation, links to some sites where you can go read more. Hopefully that helps enlighten you. I would just encourage you to at least give it a shot. Some form of password manager is really helpful to protect your passwords, and it's a lot better than stick up notes or whatever else you might consider using. So with that, George, go ahead.
I probably lost the bubble on this, Rick, but the avenue, the pathway to the manager is through Keychain. What is the security on Keychain? How do you get into Keychain? How are you protected?
It's protected automatically once you're in there. It's stored, and Keychain is protected itself automatically. You don't have to do anything. It is stored, it's encrypted, it's protected so that people can't access it. You have to have the password. I don't remember what level of encryption is, 256-bit, whatever that long thing is. But it's protected, so it's not going to be seen
or
accessed.
If somebody were to steal your device,
they have to log into your device. So they have to have your access to your device and log into your account. So depending on which device you have, like on my iPhone, they would either have to have my face for my Face ID, or they'd have to have my thumbprint if it's on my Mac. They have to log in some way into my device. So the encryption comes off the logins to your devices, whatever it is. If you're giving out your logins, you're going to be less secure than if you keep those pretty private.
Right, right. And just maybe later on, if somebody's interested, I'd be interested in how many people actually use password managers or would be inclined to.
All right. Well, we'll do that question. Let's,
okay.
I don't know how we create a poll, but let me answer a couple more questions, then we'll come to that. Don't let me forget. I want to ask that question. My experience is that most people I encounter around that I know here locally that I visit with for whatever reason that have questions about the thing, most of them do not use password managers. They have a piece of paper stuck on something or a notepad or whatever, and they write them down. That's what I encounter 70, 80% of the time at a minimum. There's a lot of other password managers out there. The best one on the market, in my opinion, is 1Password, but it's not cheap. There are others. The one I use is called Secret. It's pretty good too, but I also use Keychain. I like Keychain just because it is integrated into the system and just automatically happens. So we'll talk about that question now. Okay, Lisa.
Okay, my question is, in a browser, like I use Brave browser and it offers to save passwords. How is that different from Keychain, or do they integrate, or what happens?
They are separate. And my experience has been, like Google Chrome has their own, Brave has their own. I mean, the thing you want to find out, you want to go in whatever password, if you're using a browser that has built-in password manager, which some of them do, you want to do some research and understand how they protect the passwords. There was a time, probably 5-6 years ago, I don't remember when, but Google Chrome stored the passwords in a plain text file. It was a real problem. Now that problem was fixed later, I think, but if you're going to use somebody else's password manager in their browser, you want to go in and find out how they are protecting your passwords, because everybody does it a little bit different. And I can't tell you on every single one. The one I can tell you about is Safari. I can tell you that Chrome does it. I just can't tell you how good they protect it. And if you're going to use it, you'd want to go in and do some due diligence and find out if you're comfortable with what they do. That's the best I can say. I hope that helps, but that's my experience. I tend not to trust Chrome for password managers. I don't have any passwords stored in Chrome, except non-essential stuff. If I ever found something that was non-essential, but I don't know what that would be. I have all my passwords stored in Keychain. Kathleen?
Okay, thanks.
Kathleen?
What do you do if you're trying to make out your will, though, and you have things in Keychain and stuff? Somebody's going to have access.
A couple months ago,
a
couple months ago, we talked about the legacy stuff, that legacy software. You want to make sure that somebody has that access. So the way I do it is two ways. I set up that digital legacy thing that we talked about, so that my wife has that access. But then I also created a document that's stored securely elsewhere that I gave access to one of my sons and my wife, that I also put those passwords in, so that if they get to my iPhone or my Mac, they can get access to my passwords if I was to get run over by a train tomorrow or whatever. So you have to think about that. It's a good point, but it can be managed, and you just have to decide how you're going to manage it. Apple has provided a way with this new thing they call digital legacy, but you may want to do it another way. You can do it by just giving somebody your account passwords if you want.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go. First, I got Phyllis, and then we'll get Lenore.
Okay.
Phyllis, go ahead.
I use Keychain a lot, and I find it's getting sort of crowded, and I need to go in to delete some of them. Is there an easier way to do it rather than all those extra windows that you have to open up and to figure out if that was the correct Keychain password put in?
Unfortunately, I've never seen a better way, because once you put them in there, you got to go in and see if they're right. And I have passwords in there that are really old that I'm sure I haven't used, and I need to go in and clean it up.
Yeah.
If you maintain that, if you do that every so often, like maybe every time the time changes, like tonight, maybe you have some time basis where you go in and clean out your data. But
okay,
I don't know if somebody else knows another way. I don't know of any other way to clean it out than just go in and brute force it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Rick?
Lenore? Yes.
I too use Keychain a great deal. I'm using it more and more lately, but
my question is, do you ever use the strong password that is suggested? Because my backup are the pages that I showed you at the beginning. So I have them on Keychain, but I also have my own paper copy. I know how old fashioned that is, for the very reason that I'm 80 and who knows what's going to happen. So with my backup, which has phrases and things that I have created myself, I thought that would be far easier than using the strong password that is suggested. And if I had to put that down as a backup, it would be really confusing with the configuration of J's and Q's and zeros that they use. So do you use the strong passwords at all, or do you all create your own?
I use very complicated long passwords that there's no way I could ever remember them.
So do you create them?
Yes. No, I don't
Okay.
create them. I let the Apple Mac or iPad or whatever, the software is creating them for me. I either use the one from Keychain or I use the one that Secret creates. But they're 30 and 40 characters long. Now I know that in Bill's presentation we talked about this, and I think he had a little bit different perspective on that. So you may want to go back and look at that presentation from a year ago. But I use really long, complicated, ugly things I can never remember. And if I printed them out, then I would just have to type them in. That would be a pain. But that's why I don't print them out. I know they're in the database. So if I have to go get them, I just go in the database and get them if I have to manually get them.
And suppose your computers break down.
Well, they'd have to all break. I mean, the odds of everything breaking, I guess if we have nuclear war soon, I may regret this, but right now I don't have that problem. But if we have nuclear war, I'm thinking that my problems are far worse than remembering a password.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Lisa, did you have another
Rick?
one? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just want to point out, you make it sound like you have to have iCloud turned on to use Keychain.
Yeah, you don't. No.
That's right.
You just got to turn on Keychain. You just got to turn on Keychain.
If you want to share passwords between your different devices, if you're remotely or whatever, you use the iCloud. But see, I use 1Password and I also use Keychain, but it's on my, it's remote. It's right there on the physical iMac.
You're only using it on one device. You're not sharing it across devices. I'm
not sharing it across the iCloud. No.
Yeah, see, and I do. I count on that because I have so many different devices I use.
Well,
I use my iPad, and I'm logging into websites on all my devices. So, if I'm out and about with my phone or my iPad, I'm logging on there. If I happen to be at home on the Mac, then I'm on there. So I do share them across. That is a thing you have to consider, and I didn't.
That's why 1Password works for me, and I share the passwords between the iMac and my iDevices.
So you're using their vaults in the cloud to do that. I mean, they have their
no, I'm not. I physically transferred through USB.
Oh, so you're manually doing it too. Yeah. So you have to be all right, and that can be done too. Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
Okay. We had a death in the family, and one blessing was he was not into electronics at all, which also allows you to go and shut people's accounts because which fortunately the computer does not know that person is not the one logging in. But as a result, I got to thinking about it. I store my passwords on Keychain. I also let my Brave browser save them. But I started years ago, I made an Excel spreadsheet and I keep it completely up to date, with all my passwords on it and information. And then I share that in a link with my son in case something happens so that he will be able to have access to all of my devices and my passwords because, you never know. But for me, that would be
a good alternative to what Lenore was. That's a good alternative to what Lenore does. Lenore does the same thing you're doing, only she does it by printing out that information. And so she has a printout that she prints out once every whatever, and she stores that printout. So she has it in Keychain, then she prints it out, and instead of putting it in a spreadsheet that she sends to her son or daughter or whatever, she has printouts that she keeps. But
I do that at work.
Strategies that everybody has to do.
I do that at work because I keep all the relevant work things in a spreadsheet. Then I print it, give it to my boss, and tell her to put it in a secret file. Because if something happens to me, they wouldn't even be able to access the servers.
Exactly. That's the good and the bad, right? I mean, you
Yes,
want it
it
so the
is.
bad guys, you want the bad guys can't get in, but you do want to let the good guys get in. And how you
I
manage
call it
that is a
job
secret.
security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other step you might do in terms of when you give that list to your boss, is put it in an actual envelope and put a physical seal on it and have a date on it. And that way they can tell if somebody has accessed it.
Okay.
Because
That's a good idea.
unfortunately, I made the mistake of thinking that a member in senior management knew how to maintain confidentiality of passcodes I was giving him. And then one day I discovered basically he just lifted his little desk blotter and he would just slide them under there. And so he had sort of a bulgy desk blotter because all the people would give him their administrative passwords, etc. Cleaning crew could walk in there, photocopy him. He had a copier right next to his desk. You know, there was no security once we gave it to him. And so I switched over to doing what I used to do when I was doing federal service and have a sealed envelope.
And that's good. That's
I can
a really
do
good
that.
suggestion. Bill, I think Bill, no, it wasn't Bill. Somebody else had their hand up. Was it Ray? Was that you? Wasn't you? Somebody else had their hand up? I thought I saw another question hand go up. So real quickly, raise your hand if you use Keychain. I'm just curious how many people use Keychain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see very many. I see like 5, 6. So not very many.
Hey,
Rick, sometimes people are using Keychain, but they don't realize they're using it.
That could be
They're
too.
letting Safari save the passwords when they're web browsing. They don't realize that that's being saved in Keychain.
That's very true. Good point. And they wouldn't know till they go look. If you go look today, go open your password Keychain and see if you got passwords in there. You might be surprised. You may have a bunch in there that you've been saving from Safari and don't even know it, because Safari puts them in there and will populate them automatically when you create a new password. It comes up and asks you, it says, do you want to save this password in Keychain? But you know, not everybody thinks about it when they say yes.
If I can add one other thing, and that is if you want to save a secure note, the Notes app that Apple provides allows you to put a password on a note. Originally, the Notes app would save that password in Keychain. It doesn't do that anymore.
No, it's separate
and
database.
So, yeah, so I don't know how secure their password database is for the Notes app because it's not saving it in Keychain.
Yeah, I have seen that security. It's AE8. What is it? AE. I think
128
it's
for the Notes app. It's 512 for Keychain.
For Keychain,
yeah.
128 is still pretty good for most access, but you're right. It is different. And there's going to be a change to Keynote when the new software comes out next week. They're adding a way inside after next week's update. If you go into your database for passwords and Keychain, you can add notes to those Keychain fields. So if you have a Keychain entry for some demo website, you can actually add a secure, not a secure note, but a comment field, a note field to that password, which is going to be new next week. Shauna, did you have something? Are you muted?
Just raised my hand for using Keychain. That was all.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Rick.
Thank you.
Yes. I'll add one other thing. If you're using the Apple Remote Access app to control computers remotely, it would also save your SSH, your secure shell passwords in Keychain. So that was another thing that, it would shove it in there. So
that's really true.
it's sort of ubiquitous.
That's part of the advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah.
Here's my pontification on that. Apple needs to create a real app that works for Keychain, that you click the app and it opens the app and it behaves like an app. I think they'll do that. I think down the road, Apple will do that. But right now it's part of the operating system. And so it makes it easy to use in so many ways, but in other ways it complicates it, makes it hard to figure out what you're doing. So So I think it works good. It can be a really good tool. I love it. I recommend it to people all the time, but there is a level of complication just because of how spread out it is in the operating system. Anything else? But
Hey,
you're right,
Rick.
Bill. Yes, Bill.
Yeah. Back to the question about how to, get your long passwords to put on a hard copy. If you go into your passwords and select whichever account you got, and if you run your mouse, this is on the Mac, if you run your cursor over top of the password dots, it changes and it shows you what the password is. And if you click on that, a window pops up, says copy password. So if it's a real long 20-digit character, it'll copy the password. Then you can just paste it in.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Which
So,
is
really nice.
which is a security feature. If you're in Google Chrome and you do the same thing with your passwords, you can export all the passwords to a CSV file or a spreadsheet file, and it doesn't care whether you're putting it on a USB flash drive or a cloud drive or whatever. So it's really easy to steal somebody's passwords if you're using Google Chrome and you have access to their machine for 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's why I don't store passwords in Chrome. It's just so easy to get them. I mean, even though they fixed some of the original problems they had back several years ago, it's still so easy to get access to them. And I just, back when I was working before I retired, if I left the computer open for just a few minutes to walk away and somebody walked over and walked into Chrome, they could have all my passwords in seconds.
Yeah. Brave uses the same password setup that Google does. And Firefox has a similar one. Where you get additional security is if you're logging in with a with a Firefox account. In other words, you set up an account with Firefox for your passwords. Then it's not stored on the local machine. It's stored somewhere in their web cloud services. And again, you don't know exactly where they're saving the data. There's always vulnerabilities that way.
Yeah. So in closing, I want to make 2 quick points. Number 1, don't be afraid of Keychain. It works. It's powerful. It's doable, and it will make your passwords more secure. Number 2, if you're not comfortable with Keychain, there are other password managers out there. Look at some of them. Do some research. They work with the same principles. They just happen to be an app by itself, and they range in price across the range. Read the reviews, ask some questions, talk to people that use them. Don't be afraid to use other password managers if you're afraid of using Keychain, but just recognize that Keychain can work. And since the cost is ideal, it's worth at least trying it out. Even if you're not sure you're ready to commit to it, give it a try, test it out, see how it works. If you get stuck, send an email to the help desk or send an email directly to me and we'll help you figure out what you're doing wrong, because it can make your life a little more secure. That's my message, and I hope that's helpful. The presentation, you'll get it today. Look through it. If you have questions about that, don't hesitate to text or email, and we'll take it from there. Next month, we'll be talking about the products, the new products. They work with Keychain too.
Hey, Rick.
See ya. Yes.
Within passwords in the system preferences, there is an option to export all passwords into a CSV file.
Yeah, I think so, but I never used it.
And then and it works. It opens up an Excel and or whatever your your spreadsheet program is.
But it comes with that same problem. If you let
but
somebody get access that.
For people that want a hard copy, also, this is an easy way of getting all your passwords. And your web.
Just be careful, because once you print that out, if anybody gets it, they got all your passwords.
Well, I understand that, yeah. But it comes up with the title and the URL, the username, the password, and all that stuff. If somebody wants to keep a hard copy in a safe somewhere.
Yep, good point. Excellent point. All right, Bill, I don't have anything else. I'm going to stop the recording when you're done closing.
Okay, I'm going to say we're officially adjourned. And those who wish to stay on for a little bit longer and chit chat will be available for a little while.